Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Now I'm starting with the lecture number 5 on the topic of asphyxia. And in this lecture, the learning objective will be that we will learn what are other asphyxial deaths which occur by internal respiratory obstruction. And the learning objective of this lecture will be we will discuss in this lecture choking, gagging, and we will discuss the definition of choking, its occurrence, autopsy findings, and its medico-legal aspects. Then we will discuss gagging in detail, its definition, occurrence, mechanism of death, autopsy findings, and medico-legal aspects. Then I will discuss in this lecture coronary. This is an asphyxial death which occurs from internal occlusion of the respiratory tract. But as the incidents happen in cafe, it mimics like a heart attack. So that's why it's named as coronary. So we'll discuss in this lecture about it. Now the internal respiratory obstruction. These are of two types, choking and gagging. Choking is a form of asphyxial death caused by mechanical occlusion within the air passages by any solid object. The object excites a violent coughing, but if this is unsuccessful in expelling the object, then the choking results. And the occurrence, the size of the object is not important. Even a very small object in size than the lumen of the respiratory passage may bring about a reflex spasm of the vocal cords with fatal consequences. In epileptics, the tongue falling back against the posterior pharyngeal wall during an attack may result in choking. Then the cause of death, it may be asphyxia or vagal inhibition due to intense spasm, excitation of the vagus nerve, and cardiac standstill. So the cause of death may be asphyxia or vagal inhibition or laryngeal spasm, which again will be causing asphyxia. Now the gagging. Gagging is a mean to effect choking by prevention of air entry through mouth and nose. Something is gagged into. The gag commonly used is a handkerchief or any piece of cloth which is readily available at the scene of crime. It is stuffed tightly into the mouth and stuffed tightly up to the posterior pharyngeal wall. It not only fills the mouth, but also obstructs the breathing through the back of the throat because it is pushed backward against the posterior pharyngeal wall. So from behind the nostrils, from the posterior pharyngeal orifices, the air cannot enter down to the trachea. And when the gag is packed, choking occur as soon as the saliva, the mucus, and the edema fluid moistens and obstructs the cloth pores. When the cloth pores are open, some air can go, but as soon as the pores are obstructed by these fluids, then the choking occurs. The autopsy appearances will be: the tongue should be especially examined for its position and the presence of bruising or the bite marks before the dissection of the neck and the removal of the viscera. In most epileptics, choking, history of fit, tongue bite, and position of tongue is important. In choking due to a foreign body, in addition to asphyxial finding, the object responsible for choking is found in the respiratory passages. Regarding its medico-legal aspects, death from choking is always accidental. It arises from impaction of food or fish bone or denture or any other foreign body into the respiratory passages. In alcoholics, the vomited material may be inhaled and they can block the respiratory passages. The impaction of the object, like marbles, coin, or pea, or any other material in small children, may cause this incident. In homicidal, choking is usually confined to cases of infanticide, where all sorts of foreign articles are introduced into the infant passages, ear passages. Suicidal choking is rare, and gagging is always homicidal. Whenever at autopsy some cloth has been gagged into the mouth, which is fitting up to the posterior pharyngeal orifices, is always homicidal. Now about the cafe coronary. Cafe coronary is a condition of accidental choking where a bolus of food produces a complete obstruction of the larynx. The victim of such incident or such accident may slump over the dining table with little or even no cry. And it is so called because it mimics a heart attack. It occurs commonly when the gag reflex is suppressed, especially in alcoholics and in intoxicated individuals. When their air passage is obstructed by the bolus of food, they fall on the table without uttering a voice or help cry. And death in these cases is due to reflex cardiac arrest, consequent upon stimulation of the laryngeal nerve. And autopsy reveals a bolus of food impacted in larynx. This was a picture of an incident of cafe coronary, and at autopsy of neck, the bolus or the piece of meat was impacted in the trachea. And this was the piece of the meat. This cafe coronary is an asphyxial event, but it happens so suddenly that the person cannot seek help and falls on the table and dies without uttering a call for help. So that's why it is called as cafe coronary, that incidents happening in cafe. Now about the entrapment. The children while playing They may enter into some cupboard, some box, and they get asphyxiated by entrapping themselves into that compartment. When the person is entrapped in a closed environment, initially the oxygen available, but later on, because of reduction in the oxygen, it will lead to asphyxia. The entrapment of a child in the refrigerator, in a wooden boxer, or a cupboard, this is usually an accidental happening while children playing and hiding in those compartments. The summary of this lecture is that in this lecture we have discussed the other asphyxial deaths by internal respiratory obstruction, and we have now understood that the other asphyxial deaths from internal respiratory orifices are choking and gagging. And we have learned choking in detail, its definition, its occurrence, and autopsy findings and the medical legal aspects. And we have learned in this lecture the gagging and its definition, occurrence, the mechanism of death, autopsy finding, and the medical legal aspects. I discussed and we have now learned the cafe coronary. This is an incidence happening in the cafe, but it mimics a coronary attack or heart attack. Thank you very much. So this is all about the lecture number 5. Now we will move on to the lecture number 6. Take care. Allah Hafiz.